bad. Look, it's another week and another person we're meeting.
Yes, very excited.
If you have missed it so far, we've talked through Jess, who is a young girl buying a investment property with only 50 grand casual income. Then we met last week James, who's a first home buyer. Now, we said last week we were talking about James just as a first home buyer, no grants, no concessions, just flat out, this is what you need to do. And we said that we were going to talk this week about some of the government assistance programs and different options available to first home buyers. So we're going to introduce a new character called Kristy, who's out there going, I don't have all the cash that James has got. How can I get into these properties? So we're not talking so much about her serviceability, because it's going to be pretty much the same as James, same kind of conversations around serviceability. But what we are going to do today is talk around, because most of the concessions affect deposit amounts, Corey. So how about you talk us through some of the really relevant currently concessions that are available for people and what it means for someone who's a first home buyer.
Yeah, no, thanks, Benny, and very excited about Kristy. I've been able to help a few clients this way. What I'm going to speak specifically on New South Wales, because each scheme is slightly different based on the state. Different things are available. So one of the things that is out there at the moment, it's fairly new. We don't have a lot of access yet, but it is the shared equity scheme. This is going back and forth between Senate. There are two lenders currently that you can actually do this through. However, they're non-broker lenders, but I want to say that option is there. But we're going to breeze over that one pretty quickly till we can understand a little bit more about it, and once we have access. A big one that a lot of people are loving is actually the stamp duty waiver, right?
Yep.
Now, it's different for each area in New South Wales, regional, metro, or vacant land even. But depending on the purchase price, you're essentially not having to pay stamp duty, which rough maths, right, without being perfect, that's somewhere between 3 and 4% of the actual purchase price that you have to pay on top of your already saved deposit. So that's something that's waived. Which is amazing.
Awesome.
If you wanted to look at eligibility, contact us, because we'll go through each single thing and see what applies to your area.
And I'll just interject there.
Yes.
If you're not in New South Wales, call us too, because we know the other policies as well.
Correct.
We're just talking New South Wales today, but we'd love to help you if you're in Queensland, Victoria, even Tasmanians. We will still
even the left out guys on the other side of the ocean. We're happy to help.
That's good.
We got the first homeowner grant. Look, there's nothing that's been around for a long time. That's for new houses only. So that means a house that's been built, never been lived in. That's a $10,000 grant that can go towards your deposit. So we're going to talk about deposits today, but if you're buying a brand new house, you need a smaller deposit. It's actually really beneficial, but you might be eligible for it. Another one is let me pull it back up, is the FHLDS scheme. Now, this is actually a state scheme. It's a government-backed scheme. When you are buying a property, most lenders will allow you to have a 95% loan. So what that means is 95% of the value. Okay.
Yes.
So
and that's huge for people.
Huge. So if a property was $100, you'd be able to get $95 from the bank with and you only have to give $5. Now, usually what happens is there's actually something called lender's mortgage insurance. Most people will refer to it as LMI, and that gets placed into the loan as well. That means they call it capitalized, so they add it onto your loan balance. What normally happens is most lenders want you to have a 95% loan inclusive of lender's mortgage insurance. So that means you actually need to have a 7 or an 8% deposit to then have lender's mortgage insurance added into it to get to 95%. So this particular scheme is actually, it's called the First Home Guarantee Scheme. And again, it's different for regional Australia versus metro. But that's actually waiving lenders' mortgage insurance, allowing you just to have the 5%. And again, different eligibilities on purchase prices apply as well, and income eligibilities and a various things. So contact us to discuss through those things. But those things are very significant and very helpful in terms of lowering the deposit required.
Yeah. So look, at the end of the day, you may qualify. The key thing is probably give us a call. Let us start to run through. Here's the other thing. You might know if you qualify or not, but you still need to know your serviceability. We still need to crunch those numbers for you.
Yep.
And the key thing is that we would do is we would work through a funds to complete. Do you want to explain what a funds to complete picture is for people?
Yeah, look, funds to complete is understanding the full picture of, if I'm buying a property, what are actually my expenses going to be, and how much money am I going to have to put in after the loan amount, or inclusive of the loan amount. So we account for legals and contingency. We actually inflate that a little bit, Ben, and the reason why we do, and we'll talk about it more, the reason why we do is just for safety, right? If something bad happens and you need to put in a little bit more cash, we can talk about that more, but it's really to understand, you might be someone in regional areas and purchase prices of 500,000 or 600,000. And after today, you may actually understand what type of deposit you need.
Yeah.
The funds to complete is understanding, these are the fees, this is the deposit, this is the conveyancing, roughly, all these type of things. It's what the bank will review and calculate based on your purchase price. How much do you have in your bank account?
Yeah, which is a key figure most people are looking for. They're like, how much? Tell me how much money I need.
Yes.
So that's basically what we're doing today. So I'm going to share my screen, and we're going to get into some numbers. So firstly, we've got Kristy wants to use her equity scheme. Now, over here you've got purchase price of 500,000. Now, again, if you want to know more about this, we can give you more information. Like Corey said, this is one that's bouncing around in New South Wales. The federal government said we want to do one as well. It hasn't quite got through yet. Is that correct, Corey?
Yeah, correct. It's really up in the air. Like in New South Wales, there's only 2 banks that are doing very, very, like, most
and
people,
limited people. Hey,
limited people, and most people don't know who these lenders are. So essentially, the bank is giving somewhere between 30 and 40% of the deposit towards
so
it.
you
Right?
see here on a 500K purchase, the government will give 150K,
Correct.
which means your purchase price, the loan amount is going to be only 350.
Correct.
That you need to come up with, and you only need right here 2% deposit.
Correct.
A 2% deposit is on 500K is 10 grand.
Yeah.
Which is a massive, to avoid lenders' mortgage insurance, you've got to be at 20%. So we're talking 100,000. So it's 90 grand less that you need to save. Now we've included here legals and contingency, but here's the thing: if I told you that you're a first home buyer and you only need 15 grand to get into it, that's a bit of a game changer, isn't it, Corey?
Oh, huge, right? And look, and whilst we don't have access to this exact type policy yet, we wanted to make it known that that's available. I do want to put a bit of a caveat on here. So the loan is going to be 60 or 70% of the value of the property, right? So we got loan sides there at 98%, but really it's more like 60 or 70%. But I want to put a caveat there. Just know this: you are essentially going into a joint venture of property ownership with the government, and there are certain eligibilities, very particular eligibilities around the income level, and we're a little bit unsure what the future holds. Is if you start to earn above that level, or if you ever want to sell the property, the government essentially have a stake in your property, and if you eventually want to get into anything else or any investing or want to utilize your equity, you're always going to have to consider the government involved in this. So I say this with caution. We're just unsure what it fully looks like.
And look, getting into these deals with friends can be complicated. Imagine the government.
Huge.
And I've talked with some people and gone, hey, look, it is a risk, because government policy can change.
Yeah.
They can change policy, and previously these schemes have been there, and sometimes they've worked and worked well, and sometimes they haven't worked very well because of policy change. So,
I
like,
personally don't like it. Not because we don't have access. I don't like the idea of how messy it can become in the future.
yeah,
Right. That's and especially if you have defaults, and it's a big mess.
yeah. So heading on, so we gave you 500K. It was 15 grand to get into 500K. We're just giving you some other pictures because the maximum purchase price you can go for in regional Australia, regional New South Wales. So that's excluding Sydney, Newcastle, Wollongong, and up near Byron Bay, that north coast area. So there you can get 900K as your maximum in those areas, but everywhere else it's 600K. So that would be 17 grand is what you need.
Yeah.
And then 950 is the maximum in those other areas. So it's only 24K. If you live in Sydney, it's only 24K. But you mentioned another one, which we were going to look at over here, which is Kristy wants to get into the FHLDS. Now, you explained it before, but it's essentially you only need a 5% deposit. The key thing on both of these is no stamp duty.
Correct.
So that's
access to, you're allowed access to two schemes on this because this is a federal backed scheme, right? Which means it doesn't affect. You usually can't get two schemes in a state, right? So this is a federal backed scheme, which also allows in your local state access to the stamp duty waivers if you're eligible.
Which is that's $25,000 to $30,000.
And the reality is, Benny, like legals and contingency, more often than not, guys, legals are about $1,500, right? We put $5 grand in there for good measure, because if you're late to settlement, sometimes you get penalty interest, or sometimes you have to pay some of the rates notices and water being amortized. So we put a little bit more in there. But the reality is, guys, is if you've got $27,000, you've got it's easy to pull together $2 grand quickly with your wages by the time you've bought the property and by the time you settle. The lender, when you go to the bank, all the lender want to see is that highlighted area there where it says deposit needed. If you've got that in your bank, that is sufficient for an assessment.
Yeah.
The lender. They don't care about the cost for conveyancing being included. But that's us for good measure.
Yep. And like costs there, I mean, I recently bought a home with a pool. So there was a couple $100 in that, getting the pool checked. And then there was a septic system that cost a couple $100 to check. And then there was moving costs. So like, it's amazing how quickly things built up. So really quickly, the figures though.
Yeah.
Sorry, what was that?
Yeah, you likely are using that $5 grand in something. Yeah, that's true.
So funds to complete on this though is 30K.
Yeah, amazing.
Which again is a massive game changer from $100,000 plus your legals, plus your stamp duty.
Plus stamp duties. Poor James.
So you potentially don't need. You're potentially having to save $100,000.
Yeah,
which is a massive game changer.
And I also want to add Ben. You might be in this position where you have $100,000, guys. You're still eligible for these schemes. You'll actually have cash left in the bank that you can put into an offset or into redraw, which is great as well. Yeah.
So heading down, there's a maximum amount of $750 in regional. So that's a little bit higher, but it means you only need $42,500, and then your maximum in your cities is $900K, which means you only need $50,000. So look, these are really exciting. They're great opportunities. They could finish. And I know when I first bought my first home, there were opportunities and they finished and I missed out on some.
And some of these have limited spaces.
Correct. And so if you want to know, sorry, you go.
Yeah, I was just going to say, for some of these lenders, right, there's multiple lenders that are participating in this. And again, call us if we want to discuss which ones you can participate in. But some of them are just getting pre-approvals, and you get your spot placed, and you're competing with people that might already be on the hunt. So there is some sense of urgency that 35,000 spaces out of how many first home buyers in Australia? That's not a lot, and they have extended it and increased it since COVID and had more, but you just don't know when it's going to end. These were brought in by a previous government. This was a different federal government, so important to jump on it because it might not get repeated.
Yeah, absolutely. So key thing is, this is exciting. If you're out there, first home buyer, and you want to know more about this, just give us a call. We would love to help you out. Apart from that, Corey, thanks so much for your wisdom and all your knowledge. Hopefully in the near future, we'll hear from someone. But keep your ear to the ground. We're going to keep updating Kristy as policy changes and different things come in. We'll keep talking about that and telling you what that means for you. But if you're out there and you're going, I want to buy my first home, there is a fantastic opportunity for you out there. So give us a call.
Thanks, guys.